This conference will now be recorded.
I'm going to take the liberty of calling the meeting to order, although I don't have any particular standing to do that since we haven't elected officers as yet. And I'm also going to take the liberty of greeting our two new members, Sharon and Peggy. Say we're glad to have you aboard. There's much to be done, I think, and so we appreciate it. Would like to also introduce Jennifer Lewis, who's sitting back here. She is the representative from KW, and she is taking the place, kind of taking the place of Scott and Chris Santos as our property, at least currently as our property manager. I gather things are kind of in fluid. So having done that, the first thing we need to do, even before we get to the Pledge of Allegiance, is to elect officers. And I've asked, Laura has been kind enough to say she would conduct the first vote because none of us are officers. So Laura, I leave it to you.
Okay, we need a motion to nominate someone or some ones to the position of chair. Are there any nominations for chair? Anyone want to nominate someone for chair?
I nominate Phil Beasy.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Anyone else? Are there any other nominations?
I'd nominate John Grega.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I guess we'll just do, I guess this will probably be easier if you could just go around and tell me who you vote for. So we'll start with Randy.
Could I?
Or are there any other, sorry, is there any other nominations?
Could we get maybe a little bit of a statement for those of us that are new that
Sure.
could tell us what their goals and focus would be?
Absolutely. If that will help you, if that'll help you cast your vote, absolutely. Yeah. So Phil, you were nominated first. Why do you want to be chair?
First, okay. Well, I have been on the PPAC for a long time. I can't even remember how long, 7 or 8 years now. And I've been chairperson for 4 or 5. And I, view the work of PPAC as being very important. We have some, and if I get a chance later in the meeting, lay out some of the things I think we need to get at. One of them is to settle if there are any revisions to our O&M agreement that needs to be done. We need to take a look at our capital reserves. So there are a lot of things that need to be done. I would push those forward as chairperson.
I've been on PPAC probably as long as Phil. I was thinking of maybe stepping down, but I think I'm going to give it another term. So I would love to see what I can do possibly as chairman. Being on the committee, I have worked on the O&M agreement, I think since day one with Tony Pierce. I've had a very good relations with Tony. I've also worked with the CDD. I think I've, with Bob and others, and going to some of the CDD meetings and gotten to know a few of the CDD people as well. So that's my brief resume. I am I am a chemical engineer background, and I've loved doing committee work because it was different than being an engineer.
Any other questions you want to ask? Okay. I guess we'll just start over there with you, Randy. Who would you like to cast your vote for? It would be either John or Phil.
I vote for John.
I guess I vote for myself.
John.
Okay.
Phil.
Oh, they're leaving it. Oh my goodness.
It's gonna be down to you guys, yeah.
I'll vote for Phil. And I'm the decider.
You are. It's tied 3-3 right now.
I'll vote for John because I know him.
All right. Congratulations,
Okay.
John. You're
Thank
our
you.
new chair.
Working goals.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. John, I think you ought to.
Oh, so I now call the meeting to order? I thought we already had
Oh,
it.
no, we still need to elect a vice chair and a secretary. So are there any, do you want me to just do this part and then do you want to start with the Pledge of Allegiance part or do you want to do this? It's up to you.
Oh, I can nominate a vice chair. I'd like to nominate Randy.
I would second.
Okay. Any other nominations?
Do I have any desire?
So Randy, vice chair, then we need to still call a vote to make
I would
sure.
like
So,
to nominate Phil.
okay.
And I'll second.
All right. Guess we'll go around the table again. Any other nominations?
No.
Yeah, we'll start on the girls end this time.
Oh, you're gonna start with me, yeah.
Yes.
So I thought you said you were gonna nominate me.
So, no, so either the vote would be for Randy or for Phil. For vice chair.
Okay, well, go with Randy, I guess. And I'll go with Phil.
I'll go with Phil.
Phil.
Randy.
And I'll vote for Randy.
All right, so that's 4 votes for Randy, 3 votes for Phil. So Randy is the new vice chair. And none of the other committees have secretaries, and I know you guys aren't doing the minutes anymore, so I am going to request, I guess it's up to the chair, that we not fill that position. The only 2 that you're required to have are a chair and a vice chair. The Board of Supervisors has a secretary, but the committees do not, because the minutes are handled by a third party.
You're asking me, do we
Yeah.
want a secretary?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the committee. We've been without a secretary, but I think the new ladies on the committee would love to have that type
Well,
of position.
There's no need, there's really no need for them to.
No, wait a minute.
Oh, wait a minute.
Although the minutes are all handled by Infomark, so there really is no need for a secretary.
Do any of the ladies want to have a position of secretary?
Why would it have to be a lady? Sorry.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely not.
I will pass on that also.
Any of the gentlemen want to be the secretary?
No, I think if the fact that we have Infomark doing the minutes.
Right, there's no need. You just need a chair and a vice chair.
Okay, that is fine.
Yeah, okay.
We will continue as we always have.
All right. I'll hand it over.
While the meeting is called to order already, do we need a pledge of allegiance?
We have to do the Pledge of Allegiance. All government meetings, it's required.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We did a roll call already, I believe. Is that correct?
I did an informal one. So if you want to just state for the record who's in the room, I just checked off on my list.
Randy Bottleson.
John Greger.
Mark Eversman. Alan Steinbeck.
Phil Measy.
Peggy Hall.
Sharon Cordy.
And Laura Leroy, Assistant District Manager.
Approval of the minutes of October 13th.
How about public comment?
Okay.
Laura, did anybody's?
Well, it's, no, there are no public comments. No one signed up.
Shall we take a vote?
You have to ask first if there's anyone has any comments or changes to the minutes.
Does anybody have any comments or changes to the minutes?
I do have one change to the name of the company that I work for in my statement on November 10th. I've given Laura the statement because it makes it sound like I've got security background and I do not.
Let me find it
The
here.
company is security.
Is your mic? It is on. Make sure that that's pointed right at your face, but they don't pick up the greatest.
Okay.
I'll find you in here.
I move that we approve the minutes as corrected by Peggy.
I'll second that.
Both sets of, I move that we approve both sets of minutes.
I'll second
And John
both
second.
sets of minutes.
Okay. So then it's up to you.
It's up to you, John.
You have a motion and a second to approve the minutes, except for one change on the December 10th to update the company that Peggy used to work for to Securian Financial Group. Call a
Shall
vote.
we take a voice vote?
Yeah.
Randy?
Well,
Yeah, aye.
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 Financial report.
I guess that's me. Can everybody hear me or not? The October financials, you want to put it
Let
up?
me, it's important that you speak into the mic for people that might be online.
I am
We
getting
hear you
comments that
here,
that
but
it's
that's
hard
the
to
most
hear.
important thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I just want you to be sure to speak
I'm
into the
waiting to
mic.
see if she's going to put up the financial report.
It's trying.
The
a little-
reason I
little
mention
small.
that is that a lot of times, if I was attending it online, I'd have
Mhm.
difficulty hearing Phil sometimes because he's very quiet.
Did you need me to open this part? Okay. It's getting there. I did not plan ahead. I'm sorry. All right.
Yeah, this is the October financial report, obviously, for the first month of the new budget. So you're not going to see a whole lot of activity on there. I think the only thing that you'll see is waterway management maybe spent a little more than the 8.3 that you usually spend, 8.3% you usually spend every month. But I did make a note on the bottom of this about the balance of the unassigned reserves, which concerns me somewhat because I've only been here for maybe 6 months. And it was over $1 million when I took this over. And now we're down to 130,000, almost 131,000. And I've gone to Laura, and Laura's working on this for me to try to figure out where this money went to, because there's no way for me to track exactly how we spent that much money in that period of time. To me, that line item is extremely important because it's necessary to have some money there and for unforeseen expenses or projects that you want to do that you don't want to go to the reserve capitals for. So anyway, I brought that to your attention. The other concern that I have, yes, all right, maybe just go up a little bit, Laura. The top is is for the GSCDD. The second line is for the HOA expenses. And if you go up, Laura, you see the button. No, the other way.
Down.
Down, yeah. That's where you see the amount of the unassigned reserves. And so the total current assets are about the same and so on and so forth. But our money is dwindling away in the unassigned reserves. That's what I'm concerned about. So that's something that Laura and I will probably communicate about here before long to figure that out. So,
My plan is to have it for you to present at the January meeting.
pardon me.
My plan is to have it for you to present at the January
Great.
meeting. So in a month.
Great, thank you. The other thing is that, we have a meeting, the second Thursday, I think, of every month. And so the financial data doesn't come in order for you to do the previous month's financials report that you're seeing here. So you have to wait. And so you do it in December for October. Now for November, I don't have that information because Castle is gone. Castle was, I think December the 1st was their last time for doing that. And Scott used to report all that stuff to me ahead of time. And so I could do them now. I don't know that KW has that information. I'm not exactly sure how to find that, but that's something we're going to work on, I think. I've been dealing with Elise Maza, I think it is.
Yes, she's our director of
Yeah.
accounting for Southwest.
And it's my understanding you, Jennifer, will probably be my contact in the future to try to get that. If we can't resurrect the November expenses, I'm not so sure it's going to be a major problem to skip to the December one, because I don't think there's going to be much goes on between there, but we'll have to see that, I guess. But we can, I think, bring it up to date in December if we have to. So that's, let me see here if there's anything else.
Previous unassigned reserve was? I know it's now 130. What was it? I don't know if 130 is better or worse. That's all.
Yeah, I can probably tell you here. I think I keep those things. You're wanting to know what it was in September?
Well, we said 130 is low. What was it before? Did we go from $1 million to $1 million?
No, in September it was 534,000.
Okay, so there's
Significant changes. That's what I'm concerned about. That's why I made
Al,
a note.
what- Wasn't it like 1.3 this summer?
Yes,
That's
it
the
was,
last
it was
figure I
over $1 million
remember
bucks when I took over this position. So, and some of it, we understood, I mean, we gave some money for the landscaping project. We gave some other money here and there.
Yeah.
But, it's, well, on what, 25,000 for your generator.
Yeah.
But I need to be able to track that, and I have no way to do that yet, and that's what Laura's working on.
Did some of the money go to ponds for something? Did something happen to
Ponds has their own operating budget.
That's what I thought.
No.
So none of that
No.
got,
No, it's possible because that unassigned reserves could be spent on anything inside of the 002 budget. So it could have gone to ponds if they would have fallen short on something and came to you for approval.
But that's my concern, because when you say it could have gone there, by who? Is that
Well,
by
it would have come,
GSCD or
no,
what?
the only transfers that would have been made out of the unassigned reserves would have been approved by PPAC.
correct. And that would have been in one of our minutes.
Correct.
So check the minutes to see if there was something done. It would have been a couple months ago.
Well, it's
I mean,
not only just the minutes, but it should be,
I agree.
trackable through the accounting system.
I agree.
So that's what I'm really asking. So,
Yeah,
It was bonus, because they already got 90,000 already. In reserve.
we should have our in-house accounting system up and running at the beginning of March, and I will have access to all of this data
yeah,
at that point.
okay.
So
Yeah, I think we just need to be patient and wait for Laura to come up with that.
I have to
And
ask for it now, but I'll have it then so I can look at it myself.
I appreciate it. So anyway, that's basically my report. Let me see if there's anything else that I need to bring up to you before I get off the microphone here. I think that's it, but I do think that Jennifer and I are going to have to spend some time together. Scott used to send me pertinent information to help me put together my report here.
And the leases, we had a meeting with Laura regarding that, so we're gonna.
Can you,
Mhm.
if you wouldn't mind coming up to the microphone. Sorry, because it's hard for anybody, they can't hear you if they're online.
Yeah.
So our director of accounting in our Miami office will be working closely with Laura and myself, as well as you, to get that information all together in the reports on the monthly basis.
Yeah.
All right, for the record, you have to state your name when you come to the
Oh,
microphone,
Sorry.
because
okay.
it's being typed as the minutes
Oh, okay.
offline.
Jennifer Lewis with KW Property Management and Consulting.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm
Thank
looking
you.
forward to working with you.
You too.
All right, that's my financial report unless somebody has some questions.
Are we bound to the second Thursday? Is there something legal that says we have to do it the second Thursday if it doesn't work with financial records?
Well, I don't know who you're asking that question to, but if you don't have some sort of a structured sort of a thing, it's hard to get 7 people on a board again and Laura
Sure,
to
we
come
have
up
to,
with an extra date, so.
we have to publish the dates of the meeting, so you can have them anytime that you would like, as long as we know what the schedule is ahead of time and can publish that. So They had voted before the end of September. Well, actually, I think at your September meeting for fiscal 23, which started October 1st, that the meetings would happen the second Thursday of the month. It's not married to that. It can be changed, but that's how it was set up for this year. But that can absolutely be moved. I actually got the financials today, like about 15 minutes before I came over here. So for
One of the
November.
reasons it was the
Thank you.
second Thursday was because the CDD meets the first
And
and
third.
third.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. And they used to always meet here. And as a result, I mean, it could be the fourth Thursday. But I don't know if there is a fourth Thursdays all the time. That's the other
There's
issue.
always a fourth. There's not always a fifth. So yeah.
I mean, is there an issue with anybody on the committee that?
No.
But if we wanted to change it, I mean, you would not want to have it at the board, you know, to conflict with the board.
One other comment, if I may.
You would-
The fact that you meet here is not set in stone either. If you would choose to move this to Pelican, if we found an appropriate spot, pick any day you wanted. Just throw that out as consideration.
But can that be recorded?
Well, we'd have to do all that, but we're doing it now for the various subcommittee meetings. The requirements for this meeting is the same with the subcommittee meetings, and we are adapting to that for Sunshine.
What,
Is that correct, Laura?
there is a matter that I was going to bring up later in the meeting, and that is the location of the meetings of this committee as well as the subcommittees. The association, the PPCA, has a problem with having meetings over at Pelican Preserve. And maybe we need to check this out, but these meetings are open meetings, and they are open not only to people in Pelican Preserve, but as we understand it, they're open to people in the rest of Gateway.
They have to be open to the public.
They have to
not
be
just
open to the
Gateway.
public
Anybody who wants to
to
come,
come.
needs to be able to
And
attend.
the PPCA is reluctant to dealing with the gate changes at the gate that would have to be made in order to let the public in.
That's something we can discuss. They do have to let the public in.
I understand that.
Yep. And that's,
And so what I'm saying is they're concerned about changes they would have to make unless the meetings were kept over here.
What change, Phil? Public can come into Pelican. Can't stop. What's the change?
Well, the change is, yes, that's true, but
So there's no change. Public can come into Pelican.
Bob, can you step up to the microphone, please? If you're gonna, well, I guess it's up to John if he wants to let the conversation continue. So.
Well, absolutely.
Well, I mean, all I'm saying is that's not a change. The public can now come into Pelican. We've never been able to stop them. We couldn't in the past, we can in the future. So I don't know why that's an objection. But I will say that the Ponds held a meeting, they had 20-some people. I mean, that's phenomenal participation. I thought we were trying to be more inclusive and to get more participation in the community and to make ourselves available. And one of the problems we've had, and I've been on Pelican PPAC for a lot of years, I would love to have been over there and get more people coming. Again, my personal opinion, I'm speaking as a resident. But for PPCA to come out and say they don't want to do it because they don't want to let people in the community, that's ludicrous because people have the right to come in the community now. There's no change. One man's opinion.
The contract for the gatehouse is actually between the district and Weiser, not PPCA and Weiser. So.
So if you want to go to a different meeting date and do it over there, you could.
Or if you want to go to a different meeting date and have it here, you can too, as long as there's no conflicts. But again, if you decide to move the meeting and not have it here, we would need to know ahead of time where the meeting is going to take place because that needs to be published as part of the agenda.
Does anybody have any concern about our meetings as they are now here on the same time at 2:00 on a Thursday? If not, let's keep it the same.
It would be nicer to be at Pelican. I think it would make it much more convenient. And like Bob said, it would.
Make sure you get that.
It would let people have, if more people would show up or more people would participate if it was within the community, if they didn't have to drive outside the community to come.
I am fine with that. At this point, let's table that
Sure.
until the next meeting and get some other input.
Sure.
Um, And I think maybe there should be a dialogue among not only this group, but also the safety and security and perhaps wiser about any potential changes as far as tracking any public that wants to come to our meetings or any specific ways that we should address that.
As long as those conversations happen at a public meeting, I'm totally cool with that.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said those conversations need to happen at one of these meetings. You can't have those conversations outside of a public meeting. So members of PPAC cannot get together to discuss what happens at the guardhouse outside of a PPAC meeting. And neither can members of safety and security. They can't get together to discuss that outside of a safety and security meeting.
So I'm going to make a note then that we try to talk about that at our next meeting. And I will.
All right, could we put that on the agenda then for the next meeting?
Yes. PPAC can task the safety and security work group to come up with new guidelines for the gatehouse if they would like to.
Can you take care of that, Randy?
Yeah.
I might also suggest that holding the meetings over there is going to require, not that it can't be done, it can be easily done, I guess, special arrangements for the meeting. Because here we have all of this set up that works very well, where we can all see the things. If we move it over to Pelican Preserve, and I don't object to it, and I think the principle of moving it and making it more accessible is good, but I think we're creating a little bit of a problem in terms of logistics of setting up the meetings and running them over there. I would throw that on the table.
I totally agree with Phil. I mean, maybe over time, we might look at it and consider it, but you do not have the microphones. The minutes may be an issue. Right now, the minutes are being done remotely. How are you going to do that over there?
Are there no meetings being held over at Pelican right now? None of the committees and none of the.
Nothing with this type of a microphone system with minutes being done remotely.
I can say that I attended the ponds subcommittee meeting and there were quite a few challenges with the room. It was great. The attendance was wonderful. There were 19 people there, but there were problems with the recording. There was problems with the minutes. There was only one table, like they weren't all able to sit together. So maybe that room just wasn't the right place to have it. I'm not saying that the meetings can't happen at Pelican, but I don't think that the theater was a good room to have them in.
If you have meetings at Pelican, you almost need this type of setup.
And further, the PPCA is going to have to provide somebody to set the meetings up. And when they have big meetings over there, it used to be Chris Santos. I guess it would fall into Jennifer's lap. But the production to make those, and they were the board meetings, the PPCA board meetings are held as, quote, hybrid meetings, as is this meeting, where you can either listen in from outside or you can attend the meeting. But to set up a hybrid meeting in a location where you're not really set for them is a major production. Every time they do the board meetings, it's a significant production. On the other hand, I absolutely agree. I think the concept is a good one, but I think it's difficult to do.
Maybe PPCA can set up its whole system over at Pelican somewhere and spend all that money.
Oh, we can work on figuring out the technology. If you find a place that you want to have your meetings there are options. But I would like to come and see what's available. If you've got some places that you'd like to see, I'm pretty techie. So I'd be happy to come and see what's available, and I can see what we can work with. So the requirements are the meeting needs to be open to the public and there need to be minutes. There's really no requirement that it has to be a hybrid meeting like this with the recording. It just needs to be accessible to the public and you need to have minutes. That's the two requirements.
Just a slight comment, Cece Haas from Casella. The original talk about changing this was because the treasurer said You're not getting the reports by a certain date. So just going a week or two later was where this started. And then it grew to new locations, different technologies. So it could be that you just end up going to, say, the fourth week of the month routinely. So you've always got a later month's
That's an
financial
excellent
data,
suggestion.
as opposed to the other shuffling involved.
Would that resolve some of the problems? If we went to the fourth week, would that resolve your problem with the financials?
Financials would be there by that time, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's as far as I know, the only thing that's missing from your meetings each month is the financials, because we get them the day of your meeting. I'm not aware of any other holdups in anything in the meeting besides the financials.
Would there be any exception to any committee members to going to the fourth week of the month?
No.
Having it on a Thursday, same time, same place, fourth week of the month.
Let me check. What would you like to start? If you were to do that, what month would you propose starting that in?
Do we need further discussion, or do you want to start it next month? Wait a minute, that next month is December.
No, we're in
I mean,
December.
January, this is December. I'm always behind people, so.
I'm just skipping ahead real quick. Thursdays are pretty open in here. I don't see a conflict either in January or February on the fourth Thursday of the month, if you were to choose to move to that date. Just be aware, I think the only time that it would be an issue, because now you meet between the two board meetings, so you would have a little bit of a bigger gap sometimes in order to get things to the board or to get answers from the board if you move your meeting there. But that's going to happen regardless. It's just that there's some months where there's 5 weeks, and so you'll have a 2-week gap between your meeting and the board, or 2 or 3 week gap instead of a 1 week like you have now. But again,
All right,
that's up to you. I have
think
no
let's
preference.
table this then,
So,
and let's think about it.
all right,
I
we'll
mean,
put that on
things
the
have
agenda
worked
for next
decent
month.
And fairly well, meeting at the second week at this time. So, yeah, I'm not in favor of changing it at this time. Then.
Would you like to discuss future board meeting dates to the agenda for next month?
Ask that again, I'm sorry.
Do you want to discuss future board meeting dates to next month's agenda?
Let's keep it the same unless people start objecting to it.
Okay.
And the reason I'm in favor of keeping it the same, it has worked well. I think it's worked well with liaison with the CDD, with people reporting back on the CDD meetings. So let's keep it the same.
The only thing, John, is that you always are reporting a month and a half late the financials. And I don't know if that's a major thing, but it could be.
If I could chime in, it should only be an issue for another couple of months, and then I'll have access. It may not be the full blown financials like you have now, but I'll at least be able to give you an idea of the accounts that you're reporting on. I'll have access to that.
Okay,
So
but then we got the HOA too to do.
That I can't help with.
Yeah.
So
So
that's up to Jennifer. So at least from the district standpoint, in a couple of months, I'll have access to all of that, and I'll be able to give you not as pretty of a thing, but I'll be able to at least give you your numbers.
All right, we'll give it a try.
Yeah, let's just see how things go. Keep it the same at this time anyway. All right.
Laura?
Yes.
I have a question. Could you explain to us how deposits on projects are sent to you?
What do you mean deposits on projects?
Well, an example, Scott Charnock told me that a deposit was put down in a purchase order for that generator as an example.
We don't do deposits.
So those were the two projects I'm talking about, the lighting as well, both of them on an O&M agreement. So how does Alan get that information?
That would come from the HOA. If that was anything that was paid by Castle would be part of the HOA financials. If it was paid by the district, it would be in our financials. And we don't do deposits. We issue purchase orders. And they shouldn't be doing deposits either. We're a government agency, we don't do deposits.
They are not a government agency. They are not a government agency.
But we are, and it's our
Yes.
asset. So we don't do deposits.
Part of, if you recall, part of the reasoning for that was to try to make sure that it was done prior to the end of the fiscal year, so that it didn't just roll over into some unspecified budget.
Right.
Any other comments on the financial report? If not, let's go to items for discussion, landscape subcommittee.
Mr. Chairman, may I just make a comment?
Okay, I'm
As
sorry.
we get into this one, I want to apologize to Mark for the fact that we didn't get the announcement of your meeting out to the full distribution. We dropped the ball on that.
Well, I'll talk about that.
And yeah, you want to, you'll need to say whether you want to try it again.
Sure.
But I apologize that we should have gotten the announcement out, but it was unclear and it dropped through the cracks.
Well, what happened was I'm trying to organize a landscaping subcommittee, which everybody seems to be in agreement that we need. And I happened to pick a time when it was in transition between Castle. And so the person from Castle said she would make sure she got that out before she left. She didn't. So then Georgia sent it as a request to the communications email system. That got dropped, so it didn't go out. So I didn't find out how bad it was until the night before. And at that point, it's like, we're going to go ahead and have the meeting. Whoever shows up, that's fine. And we had close to 10 people show up. We actually had pretty good discussion. Cece was there, Bob was there, Carol was there. And we did get 4 volunteers that will be filling out the paperwork to send in to be on the subcommittee. Had a lot of good questions. So I consider that kind of a warm up. I have gone and asked Janine, well, I sent her an email and asked for another meeting date, which then hopefully we get appropriately published. And so everybody in Pelican will know that they're invited. So that's a plan. I'm hoping in January, somewhere around the 10th, Janine has an email from me. So we'll take another crack at it that I considered yesterday kind of a warm up, and we'll go from there.
In light of we found out that those emails did not go out as requested originally. And so
Right.
I did ask Georgia to send them to the HOA presidents as
And
well. So
we did have
yeah,
2
yep.
presidents show up.
We asked them to forward it. We kind of tried to find a way around,
It did.
but
And that's fine. Like I said, it was a good warm up. We had 10 people, lots of questions, a lot of good information. We'll do it again and hopefully everybody gets notified.
I was going to say, would you do it again?
Yeah, I'm trying to get it arranged for January 10th. I'm just waiting to hear back from Janine whether or not
Janine.
there's a, right. Okay.
To send the e-blast.
Okay, so I'm just waiting on confirmation that that date is acceptable and a time, and then I'll send it to Georgia.
Yep.
You-
I
and
said,
it'll
please
go
let
from-
us know because we'll put it on our Facebook
Yep.
page and we'll make sure it gets out that way too. So,
So again, yesterday was a warm up and we'll do better on the next one.
that's good though, 4 people. That's really good, actually.
Yeah. No, I mean, some very qualified people are very interested, so I think it'll do fine. And again, a lot of questions get answered. A lot of people are getting a better understanding exactly what this group is responsible for. So it was all good.
How many people are you looking for?
6.
At minimum?
I want to keep the committee to 6, the subcommittee to 6. We can have unlimited volunteers. And that's how I've explained it to them.
Yeah.
We're only going to pick 6 for the subcommittee, but everybody can volunteer. And I'm giving out the Ameriscape ticket system. So if they want to write a ticket on something that they see, anybody has the ability to do that. So
Cece Haas from Casella. Also, you should know I spoke today to Mike Lamperi after the meeting. He's co-chair of the President's Council. He's going to put you on the agenda for next month's President's Council meeting to make a presentation to the presidents about it.
And primarily what I'm trying to get out is there's a lot of questions on cul-de-sacs and monuments.
Right.
Yeah.
And if the presidents can understand that, then it'll make it a lot easier, because right now about half the emails I get are people unhappy with their cul-de-sacs and not knowing how to go forward with that. So that's one of the main purposes of addressing the President's Council.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that maybe what we need is for the landscape work group to do a survey of all the monuments.
Subcommittee.
Landscape subcommittee. To do a survey of the, of all the monuments in the cul-de-sacs.
Well,
And come up with a plan to do them. And part of the issue is reimbursement. Is that
right. And that's a concern that I told people yesterday is there's a limited budget on this. I can't do 50 this year. There's not enough capital for that. So I'm putting it out there. I'm telling them first come, first serve, and we'll do what we can. There's already a couple that have been approved in Pistoia. So, and now that person understands where the ball is as far as that is concerned, and hopefully she will run with it. So anyway, we're making progress. And I think by the next, well, maybe not by the next one, but by February, we should have plenty of people to choose from to elect a subcommittee for this.
One comment, I mean, with the budget on the cul-de-sacs, like the monument going into Portofino has now been increased substantially. I know Portofino, for example, we used to always supplement it, but we're very happy with the new increase that PPAC approved. And I think most of the other subdivisions would find the same thing. So I think that's going to be a lot smoother than it was before.
Again, it's more of a learning process. People just have to understand how we work and how it's handled. And then I think we'll do fine.
Could I make a suggestion? I know that you guys have like an unwritten policy about how you handle these things. I think it would be a good idea if we formally put something together, and then you could say, this is the process. If you want to request funds, you request it, you bring it to PPAC, PPAC approves it, and this is how you get reimbursed. I think that would be really good to document what you guys are already doing. So that might be a good thing either for PPAC or the landscape subcommittee to do.
And I can do it however you want. I didn't know if it was an official document, somebody had already done
It
it.
should be, it's
But
not.
it was how I
yeah.
was told it was done in the
Yep.
past. And so that's just how we're continuing to go forward in the future. If you'd like, I can go ahead and write something up for the next meeting, and we can discuss it at that point and make sure everybody's on board with it. And then we could go ahead and send that out to the presidents and anybody else that's interested as to how it's handled.
I think that's an excellent idea.
It's
'Cause
just,
you're right. You're right. There was probably, I don't think there was ever an official thing on it, was there? No, there never was. Excellent idea, Mark.
It's actually Laura's idea.
Bob Geppert again from Monticello, but a little history on this. Phil and I know where John is. But historically, when we were a small community and a neighborhood wanted to change something, they went and did it themselves. Volunteers did it. I've painted my monument many, many times. And for the cul-de-sacs, we set a dollar figure. This group did. And we have been adhering to that. But now you flash forward to the current day, and we have a lot of communities that were not used to that pro forma, and particularly like Prado. And rightly so, they feel that these areas are ours to maintain. And they are. The difference is we've never budgeted money to do it. And that's not to say we shouldn't going forward. But just to understand, if you budget money, whatever you do for neighborhood A, you're going to do for every neighborhood. And there'll be a lot of hands in the trough. So it's just a financial kind of decision. Historically, PPAC has relied on volunteers to do it. And maybe we can continue that in the future. Each HOA takes care of their own areas of concern, and we supplement the money. Because John, I know your neighborhood spent $7,500, but you still only got 1,500 from P-PAC. Is that good or bad? I don't know. That's a value judgment somebody else will have to make. In Monticello, we've done a lot of things too. In Vincenza, they put in, or Toscano, excuse me, they put electric and flagpoles. Every area wants to do their own thing. If we sign up that everybody's going to be treated equally, you got to sign up the money to back that up too. That's the one caution. I think it's great to have a written policy. Forgive us for not having done that before we should have. Because every time it was kind of like we rediscovered the wheel. So we ought to do that, but keep in mind that you may be making financial commitments. We don't have a budget at this time to implement.
That's why I'm saying it's first come, first serve, where if the money's already promised, then you're in next year. That's all there is to it.
As I recall, we had an informal limit of $1,500 to $2,000 that we were.
1,200, right?
At
Well,
1,200.
We actually
And-
voted
Last meeting.
3 months ago. I think it was 3 months ago to
3 months.
increase it to 2,500.
Okay.
I remember that,
Is
yeah.
that going to
and-
be the same for cul-de-sacs as
Yes.
well as monuments?
Yes, and that's a maximum. If you don't spend 2,500, you obviously don't
Don't
get
get-
2,500 because we
Okay.
reimburse according to the invoices. that
And
they
the
send
neighborhood
us.
would still have the option of spending more money than that and taking it from their budget?
Paying it themselves.
Correct, and that is
Okay.
what Portofino has done. We elected to spend more than that on our cul-de-sacs, but we were only reimbursed for the amount allowed by the people.
And I want to correct, no neighborhoods were reimbursed for anything. The district was invoiced for the
Okay.
amount that PPAC agreed to fund. So
Okay.
we didn't pay any of the HOAs from the district.
Okay.
The district was invoiced for whatever portion they agreed to pay for.
That sounds great. We have all that documented. That'd be excellent.
Okay.
I hate
That's a good
to,
idea.
Mark, can I just, one other quick clarification? Was that 2,500 per monument or per neighborhood?
Per monument.
Okay, thank you.
and if you have both a monument and cul-de-sac, are we going to do 2,500 for each?
I don't know how
Yeah.
you.
was neighborhood in the past, I'm sorry. 2,500 per neighborhood. Not per monument. You can't spend 2,500 on monument.
Oh, yeah, you can.
No, per neighborhood could be a more fair way to do it.
Okay.
Because then they could choose one or the other and then try to get back in the queue next
Some
year.
neighborhoods have 2 or 3 monuments.
Right.
Might I also throw another perhaps minor monkey wrench into this thing? But it seems to me that under the new rules, or the way we are now adhering to the sunshine rules, well, we said that we would have a chairperson of the subcommittee and a liaison person on the board. And I guess the question is, Mark, which role are you fulfilling?
Bill, that's not correct. That was a recommendation, but not a, you won't find anything written that says Doug chose to leave. He could have stayed as chairman.
That, I agree with that.
We never made that rule.
Can we please have comments at the microphone so people who are remote can hear?
I get my own microphone. Excuse me again. There was never a rule that you couldn't be chairman of a work group, subcommittee, and be a member of PPAC. The reason that Doug left was to get rid of the restrictions that the Sunshine Law provided as a member of PPAC in dealing with his subgroup. But there's no exclusion that says you can't. You can go back and look at all the things, but I'm very, very familiar with that.
Yeah, there was a big discussion on that as
A
well.
lot of discussion. And although we recommended that the way it go is that you have a liaison on the board and then the chairman of the group, that was not mandatory.
So what issues did Doug feel that he couldn't deal with as a member of PPAC?
Well, that's up to Doug.
Well, yeah, but primarily he was just worried about sunshine conflicts. He didn't want to be in any way conflicted by sunshine.
Your hands are very much tied if you're both on PPAC and the subcommittee.
Mark talks to himself.
Well, right now, yeah, you can have all the meetings you
All
want.
the meetings he wants because he's booked.
Right now, I mean, seriously, there is no subcommittee.
Correct.
So until I can get one established, I'm not really worried about it.
No.
But you are the chairman nevertheless of the landscape.
Well, I'm not even a chairman according to Laura at this point.
There's been no positions elected to it. Yeah, there's actually formally no members on the landscape subcommittee.
So if
The
they would
PPAC has not
nominate him
appointed
today,
anyone.
if they would nominate him today, then he would be the chairman, even in the absence of other people. But yeah, you're right. You're the only person there.
So they could nominate you to the landscape subcommittee, and then you would have to take a vote on the subcommittee for who would be chair. And if it's only you, I mean, I would hope you would vote for yourself, but.
Anyway, at this point, I'm kind of waiting until we can actually, somebody's got to drive this to get a subcommittee and get the whole thing set up. And right now, I'm it.
You're it, yep.
And once we get everything set up, then hopefully we get a better understanding of how to move forward in the future. And at that point, if I need to make a decision, I will.
Any other comments on subcommittee landscape? Let's move on to study of roads in Pelican Preserve by Tetra Tech. Do we have a report by Tetra Tech? Is there
Are
a
you able to hear me?
representative from Tetra Tech here?
I don't see anybody online. Oh, I can take this. There was some communications going back and forth, and there was a misunderstanding or a miscommunication regarding a study of the road conditions in Pelican Preserve. When Tetra Tech previously did this, they only looked at the 4 neighborhoods you can see there. I'm going to say them all wrong. I'm sorry. Is it Brino, Avila, Bellagio, and Portofino? So based on those 4 areas where they looked, that was the ones that they recommended being resurfaced in the next 2 to 3 years. PPAC did issue a purchase order to Tetra Tech for miscellaneous projects, I guess last month or the month before. So if you would like them to go ahead and do a comprehensive study of all of the roads in Pelican Preserve, they can certainly do that. They can issue a task authorization, and we could fund it from that $5,000 that you've put into your miscellaneous slush engineering fund. If you would like that, I just need direction to move forward, and I can request a task authorization, which is basically a quote to do that from Tetra Tech, and I can bring that back to your next meeting.
Do we know is $5,000 sufficient?
I don't know until I ask them for a quote.
Yeah.
I think we need to do this.
What was the company that originally did the quotes for Avila? Well, we suggested we were going to annually look at additional roads by that company.
Was the paving company or someone did an evaluation?
It was yes, it was a paving manufacturer.
Yeah, I remember. I don't remember who it is.
The reason I bring this up is that this $5,000
It's not going to be
chump
enough.
change
Yeah.
for, because we approved an $80,000 or $81,000 project to do that, and then Tetra Tech found another $40,000 worth of engineering that was required. So
I'm sure.
This really looks like a trap.
Yeah, I don't think the 5,000 would be enough for their time to come in and look at all of the roads inside of Pelican. Paving is completely separate, but as far as the engineering, so you'd have to take some money out of your reserves if you wanted to do that.
But my point is that we took the advice of the professionals who were paving manufacturer or contractors that road needed to be repaired.
If I remember,
why would that be different now?
Well, if I remember correctly, when this was going on, there was 2 sides. The one side was the paving company who said absolutely need to be paved, need to be surface coated, need to have the stuff put on like every however many years. And then on the other hand, you had Tetra Tech, the engineers saying, no, that's just a way for the paving companies to get extra money by selling you on the seal coating. So there was both sides, and we left it up to you guys to decide what you wanted to do. And I believe you went with the seal coating.
Couple comments. Portofino, we take care of our roads. We've been paying for sealing. That road's in great condition. We patched the cul-de-sacs, which do have concerns. Bellagio does the exact same thing. Avila, those roads, that road is terrible. I mean, I bike Avila, and if somebody's going to have a serious biking accident there, I think that road is in very bad shape, and I don't understand why they started to repair that, I thought, and there was going to make a decision to do something. What happened with that?
Bring you guys up to speed. Keith Riddle, Public Works Director. Avila is actually out for bid right now.
Yeah.
And we've received one quote and the deadline is tomorrow for the rest of the other bids.
All right, so that will be done.
It will be done very soon.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, that's been on the agenda, John.
I thought it had.
Yep. But the question is, should we be doing a survey of the rest of the roads within the community? Do they need to be done? Do they need to be looked at? In some cases, I agree, you know, some communities like yours and Bellagio and ours.
And yours too, yes.
Have done our own roads. And the question is, what do we need to do?
Financially, why don't we suggest that to the other communities? I'm sorry?
But
It's not.
Yeah, is it fair for some communities to pay for their roads and other communities to say, well, we'll let somebody else take care of it. We're not going to take it out of our HOA fees. I think it needs
But
to
I
be
mean, you're right.
consistent.
I just CC for Casella. I can tell you that I don't think the communities are going to feel like it's their responsibility. You know, that's, you know, we pay taxes and the roads, those are public roads. I
Then
just
they're
don't
going to
think-
live with what Tetra Tech will approve or not approve or whatever in terms of
I
inspections.
believe, I know for our community, they've been advised that every 20 years or so, they will be considered by those in charge. And we'll just have to, if it gets really bad before 20 years, we'll worry about it. But up till then, I don't see my community chipping in. I know them.
As I recall it, our stance has always been, if we do an evaluation and say that you need to have a new road, if you will, we'll do it. But that means that it's an engineering evaluation by the CDD, by PPAC. But if in the interim, if you don't feel that, you feel that something needs to be done to your roads and we haven't decided to do it, then those communities, certain communities have said for cosmetic purposes at least, they want their roads done. And that has been our stance up until now, that yes, if it's approved by an engineering evaluation that something needs to be done, we'll do it. But for the most part, most of the roads, I guess, don't need anything done right at this point.
Phil, I 100% agree with what you've said. That's the way we've done it. The reason this is on the agenda, I believe, you and I had discussions. I was always of the opinion that the entire community was surveyed by Tetra Tech. Somewhere along the line, somebody either sent me a note that said the only road that needed to be doing was Avila. So we'll just put that aside. We got bad information. They only checked 4, obviously, and we need to check everything. But the larger picture is the same as with the monuments. If we choose that we're going to now take all of this responsibility, and I'm not saying we don't have it, but you haven't budgeted for it. So if you have community like CC's, where they're not interested in maintaining it to get a 20-year life out of the road, they're expecting it to be replaced in 10. And then you got other communities like John's neighborhood, my neighborhood, and Phil's, where we maintain the roads. And now, you know, they'll go 20 years, to the point that Sharon made. Some people are willing to pay and get a longer life out of it. But once the word gets out, if you're paying, you're a fool, because the CDD's going to pick it up. We are the CDD. Every nickel we spend comes from the taxpayers. So you just consider the level of increase that's going to be required of our residents to fund all this if we change the philosophy. And it's the same with the monuments. We can do anything if we raise enough money. And we just raised our HOA 27.5% in 1 year. If you go and say, now we're going to be doing all these roads, and we're going to take care of all the cul-de-sacs, and we're going to take care of all the monuments, you're going to see some increases we can't believe.
Well, it seems to me, however, that in our capital reserve, we have put funds aside to do that. That's
But we've
part-
never fully funded that, Phil. You and I both know that. We've always
well,
been well below.
the question is, do we need to, how
Right.
do we need to fund it?
Which goes back to that we're doing a new reserve study, which we
Right.
need.
Right.
But even when we did it initially 15 years ago, I don't think we funded more than 20%. It was more than we had before, and it's great that we did it, but we ain't funding near enough money to take care of all the stuff that now is going to fall in this. So that's the caution. We have always held our costs down in this committee. We have always done that. And that's why we relied so much on volunteers when we can.
So back to the original question of should we be looking at all the other communities? I would say getting more information is always a good thing. Do we want to draw the line at roads that are 10 years old or better? We could do that.
That's it.
Right, right.
I think it would help you to put together like a capital improvement plan to at least have an idea where the roads are at and when you can expect to have
Yep.
to
So-
repair
so-
them.
So I think Tetra Tech now do that. I don't know whether they have to do.
Phil, you got to speak into the mic.
I don't know that Tetra Tech would have to do a survey to the degree that Randy mentioned was done with Avila. Can they do a survey in which, for a reasonable cost, they can tell us which roads they feel need to be done and others that don't need to be done? I see, before they considered it resurfacing in the next 2 to 3 years in Breno and Bellagio and Portofino.
There was no reason for that in some of those communities. Avila is in bad shape. And that's being done.
So can I suggest, I guess basically what staff is looking for from you guys is, would you like us to go to Tetra Tech and request a task authorization? This would not cost you anything to find out what it would take to do the survey. And then the second question is, how comprehensive do you want it to be? Do you want it to be just a drive around kind of survey, or do you want them to actually come in and do coring like they did when they were doing the stuff in Avila to see how bad the road beds are or good, what condition they're actually in?
Well, they made a determination on Breno, Bellagio, and Portofino that in the next 2 to 3 years, they'd have to be done. I would say it would be that level of service rather than a level of survey rather than a coring thing, which would be very expensive.
So comprehensive study
But
at
one,
the same level as what they previously did is what you're asking for?
So again, my question is why cannot a paving contractor give us a recommendation on that? When we,
They're district roads, and we would have to have the engineer's approval.
Mhm. And if we were to have an engineering group, are we just going to hand it to Tetra Tech, or might we consider Florida Transportation Engineering Group to also give us a quote on a survey?
Tetra Tech is our district engineer, so we have to at least ask them if it's something they'd be willing to take on. And if they decline it, we can request it from someone else because they're our district engineer.
Doing a core sample should not be that expensive. And it should not be. And it's not that difficult once you do a core to look at it and see what. maybe I'm
I start
wrong
going
now.
blank when you start talking blacktop and
I'm
core
talking many
samples.
years
Sorry.
ago.
I know what they are, but yeah.
Keith Riddle, Public Works Director. So for Avila, the coring did not take place until they got design phase. So the coring was not used.
Well, Avila was in bad shape because they never did anything.
And I have a lot of background in roads construction, so I would not recommend coring at this level until they determine that
Visual
it's.
survey.
Yeah.
Can they do an evaluation that's at a higher level or higher level and determine that those roads that may need work?
At this stage, the level would be a visual based off of structural deficiencies in the pavement or the underlying base. That's what they would be looking for at this phase to determine an approximate longevity of that pavement.
I mean, one of the big issues, and I'm just going to say Portofino and Bellagio, are the cul-de-sacs. And the problems aren't with cars or the residents, it's with the garbage truck. And that's where most of the maintenance occurs. I know that's where all our maintenance money is going in fixing those roads. Do you think that they can pinpoint something and say, okay, the cul-de-sac is where we're going to spend the money? spot repair. You
Absolutely.
don't need to do the main road itself.
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't have to resurface everything. You can only do areas of concern or damage.
Because I know, I mean, that's what we're paying for it a lot. I
You
mean,
don't want to do little patches, but yeah.
No, the patches look ugly. At this point, they look ugly on the cul-de-sac already.
Right.
But they work.
Can we ask Tetra Tech for some kind of a survey to
I guess
suggest to us a survey?
the recommendation, I think what I got out of your discussions, and it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, but the consensus seems to be that you're requesting staff to go to Tetra Tech, ask for a task authorization to see what the cost would be to do visual inspections to determine what the condition and like expected life expectancy of the roads.
All right, excellent. Do we
And I
need
can
a
bring that back
motion
for
that?
January.
Do we need a motion?
You don't need a motion. If you're all in, okay, does anybody
Okay.
object?
No.
Okay, I will take that.
Good.
You know what? Or you want me to? Okay,
I just need your notes.
I'll send you an email.
All right, can we go on to work group updates?
There aren't any to pull up, so.
Yeah, I can give you an informal ponds group when Doug and I are still working out our roles and how we're going to be presenting things. One question we had was getting to the Ian damage on the boardwalk in the main preserve. We know PPAC is responsible for the boardwalk, but is the correct conduit for that work through the ponds group, or should it be through the O&M and Jennifer or something like that?
Historically, it's been
We talked about this a little bit at a staff level, and due to the fact that it's actually in the conservation area, although it is a boardwalk and not like a wetland or a pond or something, because it's part of the conservation areas, I agree with Bob. Historically, it has fallen on the ponds group.
Okay, all right, we just wanted to clarify on that. We're still sitting at about 20,000 for damage with tree removal and the winds pushing all the boxes of the aerators into the ponds. Doug went before the November 17th Gateway CDD board, and we were approved for year 7 of our drainage project. So that is going to move forward. We do anticipate there's going to be a year 8. Year 7 was 255,000, but we anticipate that year 9, or excuse me, that was 7. Year 8 will be, we think, less because it's less area that we have to cover. We'd had some issues with management turnover with Solitude. That is one of our vendors for pond maintenance in the new Pelican. They have come on board with a new management person, and we are working with them to try to right that ship a little bit. We have now a fully staffed subcommittee that we assigned at our last meeting. And we've got Doug as the chairman and Jim Latham as our vice chair. And then Doug also noted that he is going to be meeting with FEMA the week of December 12th to look at the aeration repairs that were done after Irma going back. So we've got that going on. One other item of note is that our new aeration contractor, which is Superior Water Services, has proposed what we're calling right sizing the number of compressors, boxes, and locations in our ponds to get our turnover to be at the appropriate level. This should reduce our electrical costs per month as well as maintenance costs with hardware and everything. So we're in process with getting that implemented. That's it. Any questions?
Any other comments on ponds? Other work groups?
Just a couple of items for safety and security work group. Many of you probably will have noticed that a generator is now sitting behind the security house. And we are, all the electrical has been completed and the grounding of it. And so we're awaiting a hookup with the gas company. And I'm wondering, Laura, have you any idea what their time frame is? Or
Keith and I have been tag teaming with Tico.
Keith Riddle, Public Works Director. Yes, so I have a meeting with Tico on Monday to go over the site plan.
Okay.
Where we're at with that right now is there's a rebate program if you install a hot water heater. So they're going to be bringing out their contractor that does hot water heaters to look in the guardhouse and see what needs to be done for that. But the application's submitted and it's all in progress. But unfortunately, they say it takes at least 12 weeks.
8 to 12 weeks.
Yeah. The good thing is we're out of hurricane season. So.
Keith, I spoke with the two employees that while they were finishing the installation, and they can, of course, do the final checkout of the machine or the generator until they can get started. Is there a way that we could make sure that West Coast Lighting has some advance notice about when the gas company will be there? So we could try to
Yes,
coordinate?
I'll coordinate that effort.
Okay.
Okay.
Excellent.
Will the guarantee take effect only when it's
Microphone.
CC Haas from Casella? Will the warranty on it take effect when it's hooked up, not since it's been sitting there 6 weeks?
They've installed
I
it.
can
That's a
answer
good
that question.
question. I don't know that.
My gut feeling is that the warranty has started already on the 29th.
It's usually the way it happens.
That West Coast Electric is not responsible for the gas hookup whatsoever. So
Right.
And we had some issues getting information from West Coast to provide to Tico to get the application moving along. So we've been struggling quite a bit. Keith has with getting them to respond to requests for things.
And we had we were expecting to have 2 new members to the safety and security work group, and we failed to get a quorum at our last meeting because they did not come to the meeting. And I think one of them has decided against joining. So we are talking about a new initiative. We had our meeting, but we couldn't vote on anything. And so we'll have something, I think, as far as a new initiative to discuss and vote on at our next PPAC meeting.
What initiative to do what? I'm a little, initiative to do what? I'm a little confused.
Well, to perhaps talk about another third-party evaluation of the Veneto Vincenza intersection.
Yeah, that's what I didn't understand. Thanks, Randy.
That's why I didn't mention it in the President's Council.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to open that can of worms until we had a chance to talk.
Are you talking about the traffic strips?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up later, but that's fine.
Okay. Well, anyway, so since we're getting into it, the committee had talked about whether it would make sense to see if we could get a few potential options to the rumble strips from Florida Engineering Transportation. And because they did such I think a spectacular job in the recommendations that came with for the roundabout on Cypress and so forth, it might be something for us to talk about again, because it's likely they could come up with something that would make. But the issue that we have is that nobody likes the rumble strips, but we have the stakeholders that are CDD Road, the Community Association Road, the neighborhood of Vincenza, which has essentially a veto power in terms of any change we might want to make, and then the city, plus all the rest of the community. So I look at it as like 5 stakeholders that are involved in this, and it's an issue that doesn't go away.
To me, it's the rumble strips are almost a hazard in the fact that they're going to have more of an accident because of them rather than resolving it, because people are going around the rumble strips. People are going either to the left of them, they're going to the right of them. And I think the lady there brought up a good, Cece, is it? She brought up a good comment. I mean, it's all about that one intersection. If you could convince that person at that corner house that that vegetation that they have, the shrubs and everything, should be lowered or at least moved back, and maybe put some other lower shrubs down there to beautify it, that could probably solve the problem. And
Well,
how many other intersections out there have rumble strips?
But in fact, if you stood at the monument on that, you would see that what can be done in terms of landscaping, a hedge as an example, is cut down to allow that. But that is not that landowner's property. So what's on their property is a different story. But there isn't, in fact, an effort being made to keep that landscaping trimmed.
Whose property is that? That's community?
Yes, that's
The
right away.
CBD?
I road right away or something.
I can tell you, I was there in my little car and I could not see past that hedge. It's all I could
Well,
see was
it
hedge.
makes it, it makes it kind of a natural curve. So,
Might I suggest that we've made several attempts at various things to do to solve this problem, and that we look to, I think they ought to get their consultants, and we ought to get a recommendation from the Safety and Security Subcommittee, rather than us sitting here and debating it. We've been over some of these things, cutting back the hedges, a lot of these things multiple times. And I think we ought to get a good recommendation from them rather than sitting here and debating it.
I thought at one time we even agreed to remove the rumble strips and were told by the city we were not allowed to do that.
We've been
cannot.
through multiple.
we cannot.
And
Well, Florida Transportation has given an estimate of around $4,000 to do a survey. But now the subcommittee didn't get the chance to vote on that
Right, I understand that.
and request that it be brought to PPAC. And so that's,
If you had discussion about it, and you're bringing it forward now, you can do that on behalf of the committee if that was just because you couldn't take a vote. If it's consensus kind of thing that you were all talking about it and you feel comfortable as the liaison between the Safety and Security Subcommittee, I have to remember not to say work group, subcommittee, you can bring that to PPAC for consideration if you'd like to, in order to keep it moving along.
make a motion also.
okay. Well, I would make a motion that we authorize a study by Florida Transportation Engineering to do a study for Benito Vincenza intersection and not to exceed $5,000.
I'll second that. Any discussion?
And you have room in your budget for that, or is that a extraordinary cost?
There would be probably money within the
Landscape work.
landscape. Well,
Oh.
that's a good point.
Let me check.
This had been under our OEM agreement previously. So, yeah, sounds like a landscape budget.
Sorry. There was an allocation for Safety and Security Work Group in the current budget.
Well,
Other than OEM?
I think so. I think so was. You're right, Phil.
the HOA budget, there's $40,000 in the roads. I mean, that's part of the roads. As far as I'm concerned, there's $40,000. None of it's been spent in October. And so I would guess that there's money there.
Okay, so
Take
so
it
it's the
from,
roads, but not specifically just safety and security.
I'm still checking, just a minute.
Okay. Take a vote.
do we need a vote or is that just resolved?
You currently have a road and sidewalk maintenance budget in Pelicans, in your 002 fund that has $100,000 in it. As of this moment, to the best of my knowledge, there's about $64,000 of that left that's not already committed to some other project.
And it would be
Okay.
appropriate to use that.
Absolutely, it's a road. I mean, I would,
What fund will Avila resurfacing come from?
isn't that part of this, or how much is that gonna be? I already have $36,000.
The first quote is 109,000.
Well, they wouldn't have had enough to begin with anyway.
But
They only had 100 to
Keith,
start
Keith, I believe the intent was that would be out of our capital reserve.
That would make sense. That would be my
It
recommendation.
should come out of capital
Yeah,
reserve.
that was
I
discussed.
think
I think,
that was
last
that
meeting.
was our intent.
So I
Yeah.
need a vote, and then I need to know where it's gonna be funded from, and then I will need you to request a purchase order if it's approved. And I'll take care of that.
You wanna take a vote, John? or-
Do we need
you
to
need a
vote?
motion? Do you need a motion for that or
It
not?
was, it was.
You
there
made,
was
you had a motion and a second, you need to take a vote.
Yeah, there was a motion and a
Okay, he
second.
made a motion, I second it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a vote. You want an aye vote or you want an
Aye.
aye?
Aye.
Aye.
You have to ask if anyone's opposed.
I thought it was unanimous.
I wasn't counting ayes.
This is gonna be fun.
Normally I ask anyway, just to be safe. Okay, so where would you like me to take the funding from? Did you want to take the dollars out of that road account?
I think that's probably the best.
Okay,
Any disagreement?
that would be
Take it
my
out of-
recommendation.
Take it out. of
And
the road.
then
Yeah.
if you could send me the quote along with the PO request, I will get that taken care of
Okay.
and send that back to you, and you can ship it off to.
And this
them.
quote would probably be coming from Dean Groves.
That's fine. Just as long as somebody fills out the PO request form and sends me the quote, I will kick the PO back to whoever sends it to me.
That's all I have.
Randy, can you give us an update on the Casella pavers? Is that something that's appropriate for you or is?
Well,
It started.
being
If you go
done.
over there, huh? The work is there. Yeah, they're underway. I was out there today too. Yeah.
And is that including a crosswalk at that location?
There was no crosswalk plan there.
Okay. Unfortunate.
As part of the study that was done on the roundabout, I believe we were talking about some signage on Casella. Yeah, that could conceivably be folded into that project, and there are some different crosswalks included as well. So
Please be sure you come to the microphone if you're having discussions. The people online cannot hear you.
okay. Do I have to push this?
No, you're fine.
Yeah, you're
Um,
fine. It's the people in the audience. The people who are online can't hear them.
Okay. So work is continuing on getting the engineering drawings in a format to request different bids for work on that. And there was some signage included, I think, for Casella. And that was an area also that we were talking about, that roads budget, because it would be specific to work on that intersection.
Any other comments? Any other member items? Work group updates? Mark?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I thought he was going to member items.
I was just going to comment, the last thing left from the hurricane are the stumps that you see along the roads. Ameriscape gave a quote where they were going to take out over 100 at $250 a pop. I did a drive through and I struggled to come up with that number. So I rode around with Ameriscape, and he had included areas that I'm still not convinced is part of our territory that Castle had kind of just given him. And he also included stumps that you can't even find unless you go and look in the bushes. And so we whittled it down to 35 at this point. And he's going to give us another quote. Again, if it turns out some of those areas which I'm not sure about end up being part of our jurisdiction, then we may have to take those out at a future time.
I
So,
did give those maps to Jim. So
right.
if he didn't share them with you yet, I gave him 4 maps.
We're
There's
supposed to
you,
meet on
one for him, one
Monday.
for you, and then 2 for Ameriscape.
Yeah.
So.
Jennifer Lewis, KW Property Management. Just a quick question because I'm trying to understand a lot of the government rules with this. There's other landscape contractors out there that Johnson's Tree Service in particular that does a lot of work for
Right.
Gateway. That probably will come in a lot cheaper than that. Is that not allowed to go outside of the contractor that's already hired?
We don't use, I'm not familiar with Johnson.
Johnson's a big
That's-
tree
He's
service.
He's a very
out of
big tree
Yeah.
Bonita.
service out of
Yeah.
Bonita.
Yeah. Bellagio's used them. Actually, other people inside Pelican have used
So
them.
from the
for
district
individual.
standpoint, though, I don't think we've had.
Well,
them, so-
I'm sorry, I mean,
No, that's
but
fine.
he said he
Yeah.
does a lot of work in Gateway,
Sure.
is what I meant, right, for the communities in here. So I know he comes from Bonita up this far. And Dave Johnson probably would get you a better price.
Well, the part of it is we're contractually bound to have them do it.
Right, that's what I was wondering.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway, so it is coming, but we're waiting on a new quote from Ameriscape before we can allow them to proceed at this point.
Any other comments? If not, I think we can move on to member items and reports.
I have a couple of items if nobody else does. One of them is the capital reserve study, which we definitely, I believe, need to do. Laura and I have talked about it. She's gone out to get a quote to do such a study. I think we need to appoint somebody from this committee to follow that through. I have spoken to Ron DePonte, who worked on the last reserve study, and he's willing to assist in that effort. But we need somebody to be interfacing with the staff, CDD staff, and get the capital reserve study underway. And we haven't done it yet.
Do you want to volunteer to work with Ron?
I thought that would come up. I would work with Ron.
All right, well, you can contact Ron, tell him that the 2 of you will work together if he's willing to take that. Because he has said I thought he had said that as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The other comment I have is that right now we have the CDD and the staff, KW staff really, Jennifer, working together on a lot of the day-to-day items that have to be taken care of under the O&M agreement. There are many day-to-day things that they do that the CD or the staff, formerly Castle, now KW, does for under the O&M agreement. Some of these are daily things that have to be done. And I think they're working through how they communicate with those and get some of those things done. But we also have hanging in the background a proposal, at least by the CDD and by really, and had come to PPAC, of revisions to the O&M agreement itself. And I would suggest we need to get at that. John, you have already made a proposal with regard
Yeah,
to the exhibits.
I have worked with CDD and working with and liaison of that. And I'm working with Tony on some of this too.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I gotta follow
Well,
this thing.
I was gonna suggest that before we have somebody sit down and actually start debating this, that we get Tony's input.
We have to.
We have to get Tony's
have
input. I think we also need input from KW as to how things work on their level. And they're new to the game. So I would propose that we postpone any final decisions
I
or
agree.
debate until we get Tony's input and until we get KW's input. But we need to sit down or somebody needs to sit down and debate exactly how, if there are going to be any changes.
Okay, I would like to just remind everybody that the O&M agreement is between the district and PPCA. So
Yes.
we, as the district, don't have any say in how KW does their job. We can tell PPCA what we need from them to fulfill the requirements, and they direct KW for what needs to be
I
done. So
understand that. I'm not suggesting that you need to tell KW what to do, but I'm suggesting that we need to know what the interface looks like, because there are things that come up in that agreement that have to do with the CDD and other things that are handled by or will be handled by KW, were handled by Castle, that were done on a day-to-day basis. And we need to understand how those things are going to get done. And that's part of, if we want to go in and revise the agreement, I think we need to understand that.
I fully agree with Phil.
I understand
some of
what
these
you're
things
saying,
are
but
big changes.
we don't have any right to tell KW what to do because we don't have a contract with them.
I understand.
We don't have an agreement with them. So part of the discussion when we go over the O&M and the responsibilities in the O&M, that's when those will come up. But we can't tell KW how to do their job.
I'm not suggesting that you need to tell KW how to do that.
So you're talking about day-to-day operations on that. We can't dictate what they do, when they do it, or how they do it. We don't have any control over that.
They should be involved with the discussion.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
We've tried to have a meeting between staff, the PPCA, and KW, and that didn't happen. So we're going to make another attempt to make that happen.
And why didn't that happen?
There was some conflict regarding attendance and discussion topics. So we're going to make another attempt to have that happen.
Laura, can you clarify where Tony's at with identifying the assets?
He's still working on it.
Okay.
We meet with him weekly, so it's still on his radar. He's got a lot on his plate. It's definitely at the top of his list, though. So not the top, but it's towards the top. The top three.
I didn't hear your question to her regarding the assets.
Yeah,
I
just want to make sure that we know that Tony's still working on the identification of assets that would be in control underneath the OM agreement.
Yeah.
Right. Because, that was part of the discussion with this, which is PPCA and CDD, and PPAC.
Yeah. You got PPAC, PPCA. So yeah, Tony is still working on it. It's pretty heavily involved because it's not as simple as looking at LIPA. There was covenants and easements and right of ways and so it's a mess. I know he's making progress. So
Yeah. So I think, we ought to go forward with that, but we're not ready to do it right now.
sure, the intention is to have something from Tony go to the board. And then it would come to PPAC before we would put anything together formally to present for the O&M agreement, but the draft will come from the board and then will be sent to you guys. It will be presented to PPAC for comment.
When do you anticipate that?
I don't know. Sooner rather than later, but we can't.
Is there a way for you to prompt?
I think we're shooting for January, and it's already December, so soon, next month.
January would work.
We started shooting for October.
Yeah. Well, it got complicated with all of the boundaries.
I would suggest that we haven't stopped. The work goes forward.
It's still moving.
KW moves, is doing what they need to do to get oriented to what the things are, and the things are getting done.
Staff is treating the O&M agreement as it exists today. That's how we're moving forward until it's changed.
That's right.
Yep. And that's how we're treating it.
Any other comments?
I have one thing, maybe it's not a condemnation of security or anything else, but it is a security question, I guess, and Randy can kind of help out with this. Because that is a major road that comes through there, like they said, you can't deny anybody access to Pelican Preserve. And in one situation, a gentleman came to me to talk to me about this, and that it's been a while back, and my background is in law enforcement industry security, so I think that's why it came to me. But there was a car came through, and they didn't ask the gentleman for the man for his identification. The camera did read the license plate, but later on, when they checked it out, the license plate had been altered or something because they said it was a phony plate of some sort. The man robbed this couple, took passports, took their COVID cards, $700 and some other things. And he was there. He was there supposedly as a contractor to repair a refrigerator, and I won't go into all the details. But anyway, his sole intent was there to rob him. But there was not a real good way to track that down. And my question and my comments have to do with should the gate security be doing more in identifying who's coming that's not a resident? And I also had one question too, or one thought about this, is that if I call in a contractor and he stops and they try to get a hold of me, and for some reason they don't get a hold of me, what happens to that contractor? Is he asked to leave? Did he just come in? That sort of thing. So I'm thinking that maybe it could require somebody to kind of sit down with, I think Randy's got a great group of people just to sit down and review what the process and procedures are for the security. And I wouldn't leave it up to their management, be quite honest with you, because their management is going to be concerned about their contract. But it just brings up the point that maybe we ought to take a look at what the processes and procedures are out there and make sure that they're doing a decent job. And I understand it gets really busy during the season, and so they probably do just wave some people through from time to time. But it's just a comment that I brought up. It was brought to me, and that's what the situation is.
There's two, I want to respond to two parts to that. I know that with certain vendors, give you an example, Condition to Air. They basically have a pass because they are out in Pelican Preserve every day. And I think, I know I personally, when they have a maintenance call come in, I put it into Dwelling Live, so it's recorded. I think that, other than those vendors that they see every day or very routinely, I think they still follow our gate rules, post orders. And that means, you don't erase the video. Now, when they go to follow up later, this is a situation, as I recall, where they expected to have somebody come in and do a repair on the refrigerator. The husband wasn't at home, and the wife chose to deliver a package to a friend in the neighborhood, leaving this stranger in her house to commit this burglary. I don't know how we can honestly, prevent something like that.
You might not be able to prevent it, but can you go back and review what's on the tapes? Can you go back and review did they see the driver's license? And did they record it in there of some sorts? But that's where they were failing in this particular situation.
All I know is they got turned over to Fort Myers police, and I'm not sure what came of that.
Yeah.
I know we do have to be careful from the post orders as far as what we ask of people and what we require people to present, because it is a public road. So we're going to double check with Tony to see how much can actually be enforced. You can ask for it, but I don't know if you can demand that someone turns over their driver's license for identification just because it's a public road.
It doesn't leave it very secure then.
No, it
Understood.
doesn't. That's the reality. The reality is it isn't very secure.
And so, the best that we can hope for is to have a well-managed, gate security system. That's
sometimes I think that depends on who's there.
It very well could.
I mean, I've had issues with my car, so I've been in a rent-a-car, and I'll go, so I don't have my sticker on my normal car. I go to the gate, and I'm like, I live here. And most of the time, I show my license, and I think they're reading it, but there's a couple of the people didn't read it. Others were very conscientious, looked at the license plate, and did read it. I mean, looked at my license and be sure where I lived and where I was. So I think it's a function of who's there.
Well,
And I don't know how you change that.
Well, those are things that, because the contract's from the district, if you're hearing things like that, if you could let me know, since I'm the point of contact between Pelican and them, I guess, from the district, I will be happy to report that to them. We can work with the safety and security subcommittee then too. Dean and I had spoken, just because there's only really 2 areas inside of Pelican that are not public. So I believe we had talked at one point about producing a map of where people can go. And since there's really only 2 places they can't go, it's probably smarter to do something like that. So if you have that pass, or if there's like a little piece of paper, they can say, you can go anywhere you want except here. And that way people know where they can and can't go. But I can check with Tony as far as the ID requirements, like what we can make them give us. I mean, you can always ask, but I don't know if you can force someone to cough up their ID. I'll find out. And then when Dean and I spoke, we had talked about maybe having someone from Wiser come either to this and or the safety and security subcommittee meeting to go over the post orders. I mean, it might be, I think it's good to review them on a regular basis, because things are always changing and situations come up that may not be addressed in the current post orders, or things you're doing are no longer relevant. So it's a good idea to review those on a regular basis. I believe Wiser used to come to these meetings at least once every couple of months. I remember someone coming, but it seems like everything since the hurricane has been weird. So that might be something that I can request them to have someone start attending these meetings again. And then you can bring these concerns up to them and you're dealing with them directly.
Yeah, and they used to attend the meetings.
Yeah, I remember someone being
And
here.
they were also part of the post orders.
Sure.
They were in on formulating the post orders.
Cece Haas again from Casella. That reminds me, I believe that it was at a President's Council meeting perhaps a year ago where we were told that the post orders were being worked on and they would be shared with the presidents. We never got them. So were they ever completed as
Yes.
they were being
I
revised?
thought that they were put on a website, so that there would be a document that would be available to all.
Probably ought to check that out.
Just of interest, if they are available, it'd be good if they were on the website. Presidents don't need them personally, but if everybody had them, it'd be a good thing.
I still have the question though, Randy. Let's say a contractor comes in and he can't get a hold of the person where he's supposed to go. What happens to him? Do they turn him away? Does he sit out there? Do they wait? What happens?
That should be addressed in the post orders, but I don't know what that answer is.
I believe that they're not supposed to be allowed in if they're not.
Which violates then what
Right.
the CDD is saying. So that it's an issue that my only suggestion is that maybe somebody really kind of needs to dig into it a little bit and kind of find out what's.
I'll take a look at it. But it seemed to me that Doug Santner had brought up something about a spot where we could put on some of these documents, because that post orders is 40 pages long.
Yeah, but we will have room on the website to post those
Yeah.
things. We're going to be posting a lot of documents on the new website that are at least that big or bigger.
Sure.
So there's no reason why we can't have the post orders on the website. That can be done.
That makes sense.
Yep.
And who would help us get it on the website? Is that part of the communications?
Yes, Angela Chen.
And Angela Chin. She is the new communication specialist who is working with the communications committee on the website, among other communications issues.
What's her last name again? Spell it.
Chin, C-H-I-N. It's A-N-G-E-L-I, Angeli, C-H-I-N, Chin.
Jen Lewis with KW again. So Angeli Chin, her email, if you would like that, is achin@kwpmc.com. And she will do e-blasts, update pmc.com. She's the communications specialist. She'll be doing the newsletter, updating the website, sending e-blasts, and any communications that need to happen.
Jennifer, I have a question for you. We'll, every month we get a newsletter. And
Yes.
on that, we had all the pertinent information for the people in the different positions and all that. Will we get that with
Yeah,
your
we had to
folks?
pull the December newsletter because it was inaccurate. So she's finalizing, I think, the last pieces, and that's going to go off to the printer here any moment. So
Okay,
that should be coming up.
so then the whole community will know
Yes.
who
Yep.
they could
Yep. We've
approach on.
updated all the KW stuff. Yep.
Is it also updated on the website?
Everything will be updated on the website as well.
Any other member items or,
John,
yes?
do we have a status on the boardwalk rules for the preserve? We all do. Yeah. Where do we stand with those? Are they drafted or do we need to?
We are now operating under temporary rules, and that's probably another issue that we ought to discuss.
Can we put that on the next agenda?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
I just want to remind everyone that the rules that are in place now are the ones that are required due to our permit.
Right.
So,
Right.
which means you can't change them. So
We hate it
now
when they say that.
I understand that. Not without a fight anyway.
Right.
So,
But at least if we could get them published with the correct attributions of this is why we have to do that. Right now, people are angry. Well, they're throwing out everything from, they're against bikers to whatever. So if we have something we have to adhere to, here's why we have to adhere to it.
sure. I don't think there are any, we were talking about this when we had our meeting. There are very few, if any, access things like the boardwalk that allow bikes. So it's not just us. It's
Yeah, we just have to get it out there and be transparent.
I don't know how many people have walked the boardwalk recently or since it's been repaired, but I was really impressed what kind of a job that they did. It is excellent. It's beautiful. They have really, they really did a fantastic job, in my opinion.
Any other comments? Visitor comments. I would like Carol, can you give a brief update of what you plan to do with the monuments, et cetera?
thank you, Carol.
Yes, Carol Pancaw Avila. At the last CDD meeting, under member comments, I brought this up before the CDD members, and Tony the CDD attorney, is going to be looking into if there are any dedications or easements or restrictions or anything on the properties that would prevent us from selling it. And because he's doing the other work for the PPAC, where he's determining who owns what, this kind of blends into that, although he's doing it at my request, so it'd be the CDD who's paying for that information. So hopefully in the next couple of months, we should be able to know legally if it could be sold. And then also Peggy has offered to help me go to the various groups in Pelican Preserve. So the President's Council, the Citizens Advisory, the Community Association, and ask for input from them. And we'll ask them how they would like to gather that input. We're not going to tell them how to do it. We're just going to say, this is an issue that everybody probably has an opinion on one way or the other. How can we best gather the information from your particular group? So, and I believe my motion at the last PPAC meeting was that this be asked to be on the agenda for the February 2023 meeting. So right now, we're starting to see what restrictions there might be.
All right. I had mentioned to her that I would go to the golf course and see if they would be willing to spend their money taking care of the monuments if they wanted it, the pond, the whole section there. And the person I talked to at the golf course had to go to his upper management, and he promised to get back to me before this meeting if they would be willing to do that. And I did not hear back from them. So I think we just proceed whatever way we can. If we come up with, hey, we're going to remove all of them and we're going to get rid of them, I'll tell the golf course, if you guys want them, make a bid or do it yourself. But keep me up to date on it.
So that's kind of what's happening right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Anybody need to? Okay. Next meeting agenda. Next meeting timing. Anybody, did we have a date? We already had a date, didn't we?
Yeah, your meetings are all scheduled out all the way through the end
Okay,
of,
so
all
we're
the
all
way through
scheduled
September.
Second Thursday.
All right.
I have
Except the-
2 items that we'll need something for, as I was taking notes during the meeting. The gatehouse rules, you talked about is possibly assigning those to the safety and security subcommittee. And then you want to discuss the signage and communication of rules on the boardwalk, like what they are and why we're doing them. So I will need someone to submit those agenda topics to Georgia in order for them to get onto the agenda. So I leave that up to you guys.
Do we have a volunteer?
Seems pretty clear that.
Randy?
I would say ponds is probably the signage. We can work with you to put it together, but that should probably come from ponds and probably Randy, the safety and security subcommittee for the post orders, I guess, the gatehouse rules. And I will work with Tony to find out about the ID requirements, and I will reach out to Wiser to request that they have someone attend the next meeting, the next PPAC meeting. So if you have anything in particular that you want to attach with those agenda items, we can just add them to there, but we'll need a little bit of information to populate them so we can add them to the agenda, but they won't have anything to share. There won't be any information with them as far as the 2 items.
And you will have information about where all this money's going on the unassigned reserves.
Yes.
Okay.
I already reached out again, poking, saying I'd like to present this in January. So.
Thank you.
There's no other comments, I guess.
John, do we need to assign people to attend the CDD meetings?
Okay. That has not been the CDD meeting attendance for the next, I thought we already had a schedule for that, did we not?
Well, it only goes out, I'm sure it doesn't go into the January. I don't think it goes into the January meetings.
All right, we need a
And
volunteer.
it may not go to the December meeting either. I'm not
Do
sure.
we have the dates?
Getting it. Well, next one would be December 15th.
I can cover that.
And then it would be January 5th and January 19th.
I can take the 5th.
Or you could decide about the 19th when you meet on the 12th. That's your next meeting. So before you meet next, there's a meeting on December 15th and January 5th.
So you did hear that.
Those are covered.
And that's at 2 o'clock as well?
No, those
No,
are
3.
Those start at 3.
Well, then that's a whole nother.
Yeah. But they tend to last longer.
Okay, so I'm taking the 5th, January 5th.
Pleading the 5th?
Pardon? Pleading the 5th too.
I'm sorry, do we have one for the 19th? You're taking the 19th?
The 5th, Peggy's taking December
I'm taking the
15th.
5th.
We don't have any
Oh,
for the 19th.
You can always discuss that next time because you're meeting before then. So.
Okay.
Is there anything that I'll need to present on for the 15th meeting?
I think you just have somebody attend and then give a report back to the PPAC.
Yeah.
So through Georgia.
If there are things to be presented, the individual who's responsible for that would go to the meeting.
And they need to get that to Georgia ahead of time to get on the agenda.
Any other comments? Committee? Anybody out there? I can ask for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
A second. Third and fourth.
Anybody approve?
Meeting adjourned.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.